Casino on the beach?
Take gaming licenses, gambling licenses that exist right now in pari-mutuels, slot machines, card games, and things like that, and allow them to become portable.
Tallahassee is back, dealing the deck.
I've just had discussions with the tribe. I know the Senate has had ongoing discussions with the tribe.
Bearing witness, bringing it home. A Florida senator just back from Israel.
Without the mayor, none of this would have been possible.
Miami mayor's moves now in question.
It's the name, it's his influence, it's what he's able to leverage.
Calls to resign in a city under scrutiny. Bridging a divide.
I'm not here to make everybody else happy. I'm here to make my people happy.
Bridge or tunnel. The fight for the future of getting across Fort Lauderdale's new river. The big news this holiday weekend and the newsmakers all live this week in South Florida. Good morning. Welcome. I'm Glenna Milberg. We have a lot to talk about today, starting with place your bets. The always controversial question of more gambling in South Florida was just put into play for next month's legislative session. The 9-page bill filed this week never mentions specifically the Fontainebleau, but arguably it is for exactly that Miami Beach resort that this bill is filed. It would allow pari-mutuels like dog tracks that hold permits to open casino gaming on those sites to transfer that permit ability to another location. The owners of the Fontainebleau also own Broward's Mardi Gras dog track with its casino permit. The Senate bill does not yet have a companion bill in the House, but it's about to, and State Representative Alex Rizo will be the sponsor. Representative Rizo, Republican from Miami-Dade, with us today to talk about a bill that isn't really filed yet, which may be a first, and some other big news of the week. Rep. Rizo, so good to have you on the program.
Thank you very much for having me. Happy
Everything.
Christmas Eve and Noche Buena to everyone and at home and to you.
I thought you were going to join us from the backyard with a pig in the box, but okay.
I was, but yeah, it's a little, the weather it isn't very good for, I think, for doing an interview outside today. But believe me, there's a lot of cooking going on. And as soon as this is over, I'm going to get right back to it.
Well, I am grateful that you are here right now, and I know your bill isn't officially filed, so we are also very grateful for kind of a preview and a look under the curtain on this issue. We talked, and you said you expect it'll be fairly close to the Senate bill. So frame what the goal is here. What do you expect?
I expect it to look a lot like Senator Ngoglia's bill. And really, I foresee it as being a big win for Miami-Dade County if and when it passes. As you know, I see you in Tallahassee all the time. Filing a bill and getting it passed and getting the governor to sign it is there's a large gap in between those points. And so let's see what happens. But there's a lot in this bill. There's a lot of it which, I just don't feel comfortable enough right now to talk about it. For the House bill. However, when you look at Senator Ngoglia's bill, there's a lot. It would be a contraction and kind of like a restructuring of gaming. Basically, you would have to give up, someone that does have 2 of these licenses would have to give up 1 license in order to go ahead and move their casino.
All right, let me I just want to break this down piece by piece, because you just said something that I hear the messaging coming. You called this a contraction, giving up a license to get a license. In the Florida Constitution, it explicitly says any expansion of gaming has to go to the voters. So it's interesting to hear you use the word contraction, and that would be I guess I'm calling it portability. That's what is in the bill. Taking 1 permit from 1 track to another location. Do you think that's what gets around this voter mandated expansion kind of constitutional issue?
Well, I believe that, again, that what Senator Ngoglia's bill does is line up with the Constitution and the will of the voters. So once again, when my bill comes out, we'll see exactly what's in it. And I'm sure we're going to have some very heated debate on it.
Because you've been there before. 2 years ago, this kind of bubbled up when the Seminole Tribes Compact was being negotiated. That's now signed, and and pieces of it are actually still in court, but it is in effect in full. And part of the negotiations with the tribe then in 2021 was that the tribe got XYZ for a certain amount of money. I think it was like half a billion a year to the state. And in return would not challenge competition as long as it was a certain number of miles geographically away. So the Fontainebleau certainly fits in that geography. I was trying to sort of measure with my ruler whether the Trump National might too. Are there any other locations that you know of that this might be possible?
I really don't know. We'd have to take a look at it. You know, as you know, I have currently 3 casinos in my district. And so, you know, this certainly could apply to them. But yeah, some other venues, definitely. You know, Dade is a large county and above Broward County, obviously, in West Palm. But let's see what everything, you know, what comes out in this. The devil's in the details, as you like to say. And so there's a lot that will be happening when these bills are filed.
For the record, I didn't make that up. That's a way old devil in the detail kind of thing. One last question on this, if you would, and there are a lot of the things I want to talk to you about. Are you ready to talk about the pot sweeteners in this, the money that might come with it?
Well, you know, when you look at the bill, and again, you know, in speaking with Senator Ngoglia, there's an estimated about $150 million per year that would come from this, and this would go directly to Miami-Dade County. There would be a bipartisan commission, which is a legislative delegation, and basically they would be the ones to kind of be very creative and come up with where this money is going to go and be used. Education, as you know, is my passion and one of the things that I focus on in the legislature. So you talk about security in schools. The referendum just passed again last year for the second time. This would could go to enhance security. It could go to enhance and bolster refurbishing of old schools. You could see money perhaps go to augment services in public health with Jackson Health System. You may see infrastructure. We all know, and if you haven't been driving lately, wow, is traffic crazy in Miami-Dade? It's worse than ever. And
ever.
So this could be, these funds could also be diverted to, or not diverted, but used and focused and channeled to mass transportation to help people get around in an ever increasing and expanding county. So there's a lot of things in this.
Are you kind of talking hypothetical, or is there something that you are putting in that bill that we can talk about a little bit before it's even filed?
Let's just say that I am very hopeful and optimistic. And again, you know, obviously I have a lot of responsibility with the state, but I have a lot of responsibility to my district and to the 305. And
Absolutely.
I think you'll see the delegation working diligently to ensure that we focus where we need to focus.
Absolutely. And I just, you know, for the record, really appreciate that you are on here today talking about something that's not filed yet, because we kind of like our viewers to be the first to know. So it's kind of a win-win for us. Alex Rizo, sit tight. We have a lot more to talk about. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back. We are back this Christmas Eve with State Rep Alex Rizo, Republican from Miami. Wow, what was that? Hialeah, almost past the airport, right? Hialeah past the airport.
To the airport, part of Miami, Miami Springs and Virginia Gardens.
And a state rep that speaks for us all in many ways. State Rep Rizo, I want to talk about another hat that you wear, which is chair of Miami-Dade's Republican Party. And you and your state colleagues last week essentially stripped the state party chair, Christian Ziegler, of money and power because of an investigation into rape allegations that he's facing. He has said he is not guilty of that. He has admitted to a consensual relationship that both he and his wife had with this woman who is making the allegations. And I wonder why you and your colleagues took what is pretty harsh action when, at this point, these are allegations only.
Well, I'm glad you bring that up, because that action was not taken because of any allegation. We believe that people are innocent until proven guilty. And so, that was not taken in retribution or with that in mind. The issue is the personal side. And so as chairman of the Republican Party, especially here in Florida, every chairman has to raise money. Every chairman has to raise awareness, obviously. And you know that we're going into 2024, a presidential cycle, an extremely important one. And Florida, of course, is very important when it comes to Republican politics nationally. And so this decision was taken because the executive board felt, and by the way, it was all 40 members except for one vote, and that was Chairman Ziegler's to do this. And that was basically, we've lost faith that story, that personal story, isn't what takes up the narrative when it comes to doing the job of chairman of the Republican Party of Florida.
The personal story, just to be clear, having nothing to do with the allegations, but his preference in sexual activities, is that the personal story that you're speaking about?
You're the reporter, and so I'll let you report. But basically, everything, as far as, and again, what goes on in people's personal lives is their business. However, we have just felt that since that story broke, and with the revelations that Chairman Ziegler, has not denied and has basically told us all about, it just becomes, it seems like that becomes the story and not the job of chairman of the Republican Party of Florida. And so we just felt that it was better if the chair resigned. He has chosen not to resign. And so, the vote was taken to censure it and to recommend resignation, to go ahead and change his salary and to not afford him the benefit or the not the benefit, but the reimbursements for any costs associated with his chairmanship.
So what happens now in the party, because he has not resigned? Will there be, how does that work?
So now there will be a special meeting with all the entire Republican Party of Florida, that committee consisting of all the chairs, all the vice chairs, all the state committee men, and all the state committee women in each one of the 67 counties. We will convene, and at that point, the attorneys will tell us kind of where we are, what we can do, and we'll move forward. But right now, you have members out there that are running to be chair people. So, let's see what happens. That vote would come sometime in January, early January.
I want to ask you something I've heard raised. It's not a political question, but it is a question about the Republican Party. Having said all of this, the serious ways you're taking what has happened with the state party chair, you have what looks to be a Republican presidential frontrunner who actually is charged with 91 crimes, who's not being censured in any way. Not that I'm suggesting he should be, but the way the party, and especially Florida's Republican Party, is dealing with that candidate. How do you square those two responses?
That is an elected at-large position. It's a position that, again, many of us, if not most of us on the Republican side of the aisle, really feel that a lot of these charges probably have a lot of maybe not as much merit as those that are hurling them and filing these charges do. And so that's a little different. That we will put out to the voters. Poll after poll shows that President Trump, for example, is very high up in the polling numbers. And so that we as a party have allowed or said we will allow the voters to decide.
Fair enough. One last, you have 5 bills filed. I want to bring it back to state level. You have 5 bills filed that we could talk about that actually are filed. And one of them deals with AI. And yes, it appears that there is a real concern about AI and alternative kind of audio and video in the upcoming elections. Where did that come from, and what do you hope to achieve with that one?
So interestingly, that particular bill, that is HB 919, and that has been filed, and I don't, off the top of my head, remember the Senate number, but it is filed by my dear friend, Senator Nick DeSiglia. One of the things that we saw and have seen is obviously the surge in AI starting to affect our lives everywhere.
Yeah.
So we have had a lot of questions in the legislature, in both houses, and in the governor's office, I know as well, about AI. What do we do? How do we start to get in front of this? What will we see? We already see all you got to do is get on the Chat GPT, something like that, and say, hey, I want to talk about, write an essay on this topic, and boom, it spits it out. And so we need to look at that in education. We need to look at that in business. We need to look at that everywhere. In elections, what do we see? We see images that every day are increasingly better at showing an image that doesn't seem like it's computer generated. And so what we want to do is get ahead of that. And Senator and I want to head this off and say that any political ad that has any bit of a computer generated image that has used AI in it must give that disclaimer that this has been generated by that. So you can imagine, let's just give this example. You've got me on your show right now. Imagine you saw, me as state representative, and I have an election, and I say, hi, I'm Alex Rizo, please vote for my opponent.
And you don't know whether you're looking at the real Alex Rizo or a computer-generated Alex
Exactly.
Rizo.
And so you would see that disclaimer on there saying that this is a computer-generated image, or an AI-generated image.
So that's we don't have the time now, but that's something that I'd really like to bring you in and discuss as that bubbles up and goes through committee, because I think that's going to be a really interesting, one of the session's really interesting bills. Maybe not the biggest or most known, but certainly very interesting and relevant to all of us. Alex Rizo, great to have you on the program. Merry Christmas to you and yours.
Thank you. Same to you and yours and everyone in South Florida. God bless. Merry Christmas.
Thank you. And up next, a South Florida state senator just back from Israel and an up-close tour of terror. Israel at war continues to be a focus for state lawmakers. 4 bills actually are already filed in the House and Senate in support. One state senator is just back from an unannounced trip there to tour scenes of the terrorists, what they did, the atrocities. State Senator Jason Pizzo documented some of what he experienced on social media. Senator Pizzo, Democrat, repping coastal Broward and Northeast Dade, right there with us today. Good morning, Jason Pizzo. Great to have you.
Morning, Lana.
Welcome home.
Thank you.
So I'm interested to hear how did this trip come about? Was this a personal trip? Was this a professional trip? And how did you go to the places you went?
I think it's personal in nature, but I think it has a resonating effect publicly and with a lot of my colleagues that I heard from as soon as I announced that I had left. A dear friend of mine, Leslie, who's been documenting a program called The Last Ones of Holocaust Survivors, is actually meeting with a film crew over there to talk to some of the families that have been displaced from their kibbutzes, many of whom of their fellow neighbors in the kibbutz who were killed, slaughtered, children, women, men, and I just felt the need to be there. It's the old term actually comes out of Russian origin, but it's trust but verify. And we were shown stuff in the Senate. The Consul General of Israel came to Tallahassee to show us video and to show us data and information. And I think a lot of my colleagues had the yearning and desire to go over there. And when the opportunity arose, I took it.
And as we're talking, I'm not sure you can see, we are looking at some of the images and the videos and the photographs that you posted from your touring on your own social media. Did anything that you saw or experienced change any of the perspectives that you had prior to?
So I believe to be incredibly intellectually honest and unbiased in this. Certainly my district has a large Jewish population. I think I have the most synagogues and schools, numbering 63 or 64. But I'm never quick to cast judgment. This sort of ran October 7th ran concurrent with a number of over a dozen schools and universities, colleges that I toured over the state of Florida, and hearing some of the rhetoric from students was very alarming, based on whatever information source they had. And so, I guess my kid's generation doesn't do as much of a deep dive into history, I don't think. And so I went there with as much of an open mind as possible. I had seen sort of one side, I guess you could say. But then being there and literally walking through the kibbutz to Be'eri, Kifusim, the very first night that we were there, and just walking down the street the other day in Tel Aviv and having a woman grab me to take cover in a stairwell because rockets were being fired overhead. And I hear the rhetoric at home from all generations and all different types. And when I hear the term "Free Palestine," the question begs itself: who's going to free them? And without this interaction, I don't see a path forward.
You kind of started to answer one of the questions I had, because I know you made a very concerted effort, not having nothing to do with this, about doing a college tour to talk to young voters. And I guess your college tour and your visits to campuses around the state really does coincide with what's going on campuses. To your point, with rhetoric being repeated and people who don't really know the history and context, but know headlines and come probably from a very authentic place of social justice. People want to be social justice warriors. So I wonder, when those two things, now that you're on the forefront of both of those things, what's the plan going forward?
So I'm having a really difficult time trying to reconcile now, having been there. I'm having a very difficult time, Glenna, very candidly, trying to reconcile the idea of some otherwise amazing women's rights, human rights groups and organizations we have here domestically, who have been absolutely mum and have said not a word about places that I saw, about verified tragedies of women being raped, of babies being put in ovens, of just absolute slaughter. The Israelis dropped 1.9 million flyers from the air, made 400,000 plus text messages and 29,000 phone calls. We haven't seen that kind of sort of effort to warn beforehand preemptively since Churchill did it in Hamburg in World War II. That resulted in the death of 70,000 still. So I talked to Rachel Goldberg. Her son, Hirsch Goldberg Poland, is 23 years old. His left arm was blown off. We've seen it in videos, and was still thrown in the back of a pickup truck and taken. And speaking to his mother, she said, from the president on down, people have been wonderful. When I was with my friend Leslie, she was there a few weeks ago, and Rachel said, Leslie, I said, talk to your legislators. I didn't know that you were actually going to bring one. But she said some of the very prominent personalities, non-elected officials, and some elected officials very high up have been mum because they just don't want to engage because sometimes the polling doesn't look good. I guess people were honest with her enough. The path forward, I don't know. Again, I don't know where women's rights and human rights groups are in this position when rape was an instrument and tool. And this information is available. So I have deep concerns about how this is exasperating, I think, underlying divisiveness and polarization that we already have. I'm concerned. I'm concerned for my kids.
You will be going back to session next month. We saw a special session just last month, and there were you and your colleagues in the Senate and in the House in Tallahassee passed a slate of a couple of bills in support of Israel, and there are more filed to come. But on the House side, one of your colleagues in the House from Jacksonville had gotten up to make an amendment to call for a ceasefire, and was very emotional about talking about the babies dying, tens of thousands of people and civilians caught in this maelstrom, and she had backs turned toward her. I wonder how, when this comes up in January among the legislators in Tallahassee, what do you expect will be the tone and tenor when there are people who are really raising alarms about the toll on civilians that this war is taking?
Glenn, I look at it from this perspective. Hamas was chosen as leadership, either if you want to believe democratically, in which case they should choose somebody else, or these people are kept under the thumb of a terrorist organization and they need the help of others to free them. So it's either or. If you wish for casualties not to occur, for death not to continue to occur, there are two options. In the United States, we have incredibly polarized and divisive rhetoric back and forth between both parties, but every 4 years we get to choose somebody else if that's the case. So if this was by their own choosing and somewhat of a republic or a democracy to choose Hamas, well, then they have what they have. And if it's not, they certainly need the help of some international body to free them from this control of Hamas. So either way, even for those who are advocates for peace, who are advocates for a ceasefire, for this all to end, that's all very well and good. I'd like to have the 8 remaining American hostages returned. I'd like to have a proof of life. I'd like for everyone to remember that 29 Americans were killed. And I'd like everyone to realize that a ceasefire just allows one side to embolden themselves to entrench and to rebuild and continue to cause terror.
Very grateful that you are having this very difficult conversation with us. Jason Pizzo, thanks for being with us. Safe travels home and happy holidays to you.
Thank you, Glenna.
Up next, calls to resign are mounting for Miami's mayor, even from those who supported him the most. One of them is the former police chief who joins us next. In the city of Miami, where one commissioner is arrested on corruption charges and suspended, another is responsible for weaponizing city government against political opponents. Increasing scrutiny is now on the mayor, Francis Suarez. He is under FBI investigation and under scrutiny by a team at the Miami Herald, raising questions about using his public office for private gain. We actually asked the mayor about some of that when he was with us 2 months ago today. Here is this documentation of this company and Rishi Kapoor thanking you for your help on something. What did you help them on? And helping a constituent is what you're supposed to do, but the payment for that help as an elected official, you know, is what's problematic to constituents. So what is he thanking you for?
Of course, that would be problematic. And I have absolutely, by the way, I'm not upset at all at the Miami Herald for writing an article based on.
I'm not talking about the Herald at all. In fact, the Herald is the one who. I'm
not upset at any media outlet for talking about it. I'm here to talk about it with you. I'm not upset at anyone for wanting to talk about it. I think it's absolutely in bounds.
So what were they thanking you for?
I have no idea what he was thanking me for. I wasn't involved in those emails. I wasn't included in those emails. So I was never told that.
Important to note, there are no legal nor ethical conclusions, though some, including Miami's former police chief, believe the writing's on the wall. George Colina, one of Suarez's close allies as chief, right here with us live today. So good to have you on the program, George Colina.
So nice to be with you, Glenna.
Merry Christmas to you. Beautiful tree in the background.
Thank you.
So there was a very close-knit working relationship that you had when you were chief with the mayor, and during his first term, I believe you retired right at the end of his first term. What changed since then?
In terms of his behavior, or in terms
of your perspective on him?
I think what's changed is paying attention to the media, paying attention to the stories that have come out, scrutinizing what city officials are doing. When you work in the city, you're kind of enveloped by everything that's happening around you. Being able to step back and watch, you really do have a different perspective. And I root for the city every day. I root for everyone that's there. I spent a little over 30 years working at the city of Miami. But it gets to a point, Glenna, where quite frankly, it's embarrassing of what's going on in Miami. It's one controversy after another. It's one elected official being wrapped up in an investigation or a lawsuit or a combination of both. And it starts to get old, and you want to see your city rise above that.
Yeah, it's difficult to have the drip, drip, drip of news reports even on this morning's front page of the Miami Herald. I believe the headline is "Absentee Mayor." But in fairness, the city of Miami does not have a strong mayor. In fact, Mayor Suarez tried to make that happen and it didn't. So he has a veto power, and he has a couple of other powers, but not much. That belongs to the commission. So he is an ambassador, really, for the city. So can a case be made that he is doing an ambassador's job?
You can make a case, absolutely. And I think it's always appropriate to give someone the benefit of the doubt, right, in trying to make a case. But I don't accept this is a ceremonial position with little power. Ultimately, it's still a position of leadership, right? And people look to you for leadership. And when you don't say anything about what's going on in the city, that silence, that essentially equates to acceptance, to it being okay. And it's not acceptable, and it's not okay what's going on at the city of Miami.
So now that you are, to your point, reading the headlines and reading these stories and the details and the background, in hindsight, can you think of anything during your tenure as chief with the mayor that maybe in the present tense you didn't really focus on, but in hindsight might have been problematic?
In hindsight, really the only thing was there were already things going on at City Hall, right? The behavior of certain commissioners that in hindsight, I certainly wish there would have been a greater voice, right? Not just that from a department head, but from technically the leader of the city of Miami in that of the mayor, right? So in hindsight, and again, we know how that works, hindsight being 2020, certainly it would have been good to hear even back then kind of laying the foundation for what's acceptable and what isn't, what's proper decorum and what isn't.
You're talking about, just to be clear, you're talking about you would have liked to hear that from Mayor Suarez about other things going on in the city?
Yeah, at commission, we would see, even when I was chief, we would see things that would come up at commission. We would see behavior of certain commissioners, the way they would speak out against certain people, if they didn't like what you were saying when you had your 2 minutes, right, of public discussion where you're allowed to go and express yourself. I would have liked to have seen a more forceful position of leadership and saying, hey, that's not acceptable. And we're ultimately accountable to our constituencies, right? We are here to work for the people of Miami as a whole, not just the powerful, not just the wealthy, but for everyone. Would have liked to have seen more of that. Now, I think the mayor did a great job in promoting the city of Miami. I think he had a lot of energy going out and promoting the city of Miami. But there's a lot of hats that you have to wear when you hold a position like that, and I would have liked to have seen more of it.
All of this really started coming out because the mayor ran for president. In that failed presidential campaign, he had to file financials that he never had to file before. And I think that really laid the groundwork for a lot of the public records reporting that has bubbled up since. You have not technically called for his resignation from your perch. You've hedged a bit on that. And I wonder, is that because you have seen no direct evidence that he's done anything wrong that can be dotted and crossed as illegal?
Well, I don't really know enough about the investigation, right, to comment on it in terms of this is an absolute slam dunk, right? His relationship with the Saudi government, him acting on behalf of others outside of the city, but using the umbrella of the mayor of the city, right? Some of those things, those lines do get blurred. I think it's a legitimate question. I don't think it was appropriate for the mayor's office to say that the comments of a new sitting commissioner were comical, like the Herald story. That's the kind of thing I'm talking about. I think it's legitimate to consider him resigning. I think that's a question that he should be asking himself. When you are in a position of leadership, you need to do what's best for the city as a whole, collectively, not what's best for you. And so that's why I'm saying it's a legitimate question on whether he should step aside so the rest of the city can move on and kind of break away from this dark cloud that seems to be lingering over the city of Miami. Do I personally think that he should resign, just to kind of get to the question? I do. I do think that he should do that, but that's a personal decision. To your earlier point, there isn't anything legally that's binding him to do that. It's really more about what's ultimately best for Miami. And if you're honest about that question, asking yourself that question, I think the best thing for the city of Miami is for him to step aside and for the city to move on with different leadership, different commissioners, different government.
Former Chief Jorge Colina, even in your retirement, when I know you're not really retired because you work a lot, but I know you are still a very important voice in the city, and I appreciate you weighing in with us today.
Thank you, Glenn, and Merry Christmas to everyone.
Merry Christmas to you. Thank you. Up next, bridging the divide, or should it be a tunnel? The future of how Fort Lauderdale crosses the river hangs in the balance. That's next. The bridge and tunnel crowd is what New Yorkers call those who commute in from New Jersey. But in South Florida, there is a bridge versus tunnel crowd involving which to build to get commuters across the new river in Fort Lauderdale. That heated debate divides Fort Lauderdale and Broward County leaders. This week, Fort Lauderdale city commissioners agreed they all want the tunnel, but voted to accept a bridge if that's what the county considers more affordable. Fort Lauderdale's Mayor, Dean Trantalis, is firmly team tunnel, here to frame out what's possible and maybe what's probable. Mayor, hello.
Hello, how are you?
Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Holiday weekend.
Yes, it is.
So team tunnel this week, in this everyone on the Fort Lauderdale dais is team tunnel.
Yes.
But the resolution that was voted on is, okay, we want a tunnel, but we'll take a bridge if we have to. What does that even mean?
Good question. I didn't vote for it, so but this is. Let me give you a little bit of a background on this. So, you know, thinking ahead regionally, we need some sort of commuter rail. I think everyone has kind of agreed with that.
Brightline, Tri-Rail.
All of that.
Yeah.
You know, we're inching our way towards more rail service as opposed to depending upon cars for transportation.
Yeah.
What happened was, when we started looking at the details, the rail system now crosses over the new river. And there's I'd say 4-foot or 5-foot clearance that the current bridge has over the river. So over the years, the marine industry has tolerated that because there are fewer trains that now pass over the new river. If you add a commuter rail service, they're talking as much as 100 more trains passing over the new river, which would absolutely stifle.
A day?
A day.
100 trains a day?
A day, because
wow.
You're talking about maybe 8 to 10 minutes per hour. And every hour.
We're running some video, but if you haven't been to downtown Fort Lauderdale, a lot of people now live right there on the tracks.
That's the point. And all the investment that we have, not only in the marine industry upriver, but also all the housing, the current investment, the future investment runs into the billions of dollars. So many people have said, well, look, let's do something to cross the river that will make it easier for the marine industry to tolerate. So they said, let's have a tall bridge. But if you look at what a bridge would do, instead of this kind of transportation system encouraging economic development, it would crush the economic development that's already taking place in Fort Lauderdale. So what's the gain for Fort Lauderdale? So we decided, hey, look, what about another concept? What about a tunnel? Tunnels are built all over the world. We brought in experts from all over the world. In fact, we've been dealing lately with BDO, which is world-renowned for building tunnels throughout the world.
So we have a tunnel right there at the Port of Miami.
And we have one in Fort Lauderdale.
You have one, that's right, the Kenny,
yes.
the Kenny Tunnel. And that's a massive, as a capital project, a tunnel is a massive undertaking. So is this, we're talking about money, cost versus cost.
Right, so the Florida Department of Transportation came in and said, hey, if you want a tunnel, it's going to cost about $4 billion. We brought in some of our own experts and said, okay, well, let's look at this again. And then they came down to half that price. And just this past meeting, engaging BDO, they came up with a concept for $1.25 billion, all in.
Versus bridge costs.
We don't even know yet, because the bridge cost is not just the cost of the bridge, but it's also the taking of land that they're going to have to do. There's no taking.
I wrote down $550 million is the cost of the
capital cost of the bridge,
cost,
but doesn't take into consideration the taking of land, which they would have to take from private developers
and pay for.
And pay for it, which could be billions of dollars, or it doesn't take into consideration those intangible costs, like quality of life, imposing a bridge overhead in neighborhoods that would have to live under a bridge. Those are intangibles, which, what do you put a price to that to?
So people, you had a certain clip of sound we ran, you know, I don't care who's happy, when my people are happy, that's who I'm making happy. Do your people, Fort Lauderdale residents, have you taken the pulse of the residents?
Well, we've had multiple public hearings on this, and not one person has come out and said, oh, we want a bridge. Not one person. In fact, just this past week when we had our city commission meeting, everybody, the Downtown Development Authority, neighborhood associations, all the people that are stakeholders or people that live in and around the area, all are wanting a tunnel.
So when you go in front of the county commissioners are ready for the bridge, and one day we'll have one of our friends from the county commission here to talk about that side of things, but what don't they want about the tunnel?
Well, so they're being scared by their staff because they're being given incomplete information or inaccurate information.
Okay, there's no one here to defend that, so careful.
Well, it's okay, because I'm just looking at, and I'll give you an example. One of the county administrator wrote an op-ed piece in the Sun Sentinel a few months ago, and saying that the tunnel would cost $6 billion, when we know that's nowhere near the cost. If that were the case, I might even consider a bridge over a tunnel. But the reality is that tunnels cost far less, and the impact is far more important to the communities than just simply looking at it from a capital cost point of view.
Has there been a timeline of construction, tunnel versus bridge? Because tunnels take
less time, because we just found out that the tunnel all in would be about 4 to 5 years. The county has estimated between 9 and 10 years, which is inaccurate. So, and the thing we have to understand.
How just for clarity,
sure,
how is that inaccurate and yours is accurate? Who determined that?
I'll tell you why. Because when FDOT did its analysis, they did 3-4 bridge analyses. They did 1 tunnel analysis. We've done multiple tunnel analysis. We've shortened the tunnel. We've made different analysis. We've taken on a different aspect to show that you don't have to even take land when you build a tunnel. Okay, so all can be done within the right-of-way of the FECR tracks.
So there is, as we speak today,
yes,
I guess a clock ticking because of federal funding.
Yes and no. Yes and no. I mean, we have an infrastructure bill that was passed by Congress, and the next round of funding comes up between February and April of next year. Many people were saying, oh, it's going to go away if Biden doesn't win, and that's not true, because honestly, we've been talking with Department of Transportation people even under the Trump administration. And so it's not a political thing, it's all about just trying to do the right thing for our community, and that's what we need to do. We cannot impose a structure like a bridge to destroy economic activity when in fact we need to do something that enhances economic activity.
So in 10 seconds, because there's a clock, what comes next?
What comes next? Working together with the county, we'll get this done.
Okay, you're good at that. Yeah. Mayor Dean Trantalis, thanks for coming in on this holiday weekend. Have a beautiful Christmas, and stay in touch, because this is very important to a lot of people.
Thank you so much.
All right, thank you so much. And we will be right back. You know you want more. To rewatch today's interviews or listen to the This Week in South Florida podcast, all you have to do is scan this QR code with your phone, and it takes you right to the This Week in South Florida section of local10.com. And you can connect with us very easily. You know we love to hear your perspectives on anything in the news, anything that you've seen here. You can email, or you can find us on social media at Glenna, WPLG. That's Facebook, X, Twitter, Instagram, even on Threads, if anyone's using Threads. And we thank you so much for being with us here and for spending your hour with us. Have a beautiful Sunday. Have a beautiful holiday weekend. And remember, keep in touch.